Stocks on Wall Street end Friday's session higher after an inline inflation data, but key indices still end the week with losses. Friday's move sees the US market snap a three-day losing streak as the core PCE inflation came in line with expectations at 2.9% on a year-on-year basis. The Asian markets have started the week on a mixed note, although GIFT Nifty is indicating a gap up start for our own markets. Oil prices fall nearly 1% after Iraq resumes crude exports via Turkey over the weekend, and as OPEC Plus plans another oil output hike for the month of November. Gold prices meanwhile remain firm as fresh US inflation data reinforces bets of a Fed rate cut. The two-day RBI monetary policy meeting begins today. The Reserve Bank's interest rate decision will be announced on Wednesday. Analysts remain largely mixed on the central bank's next move. And Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal returned on Friday after a three-day visit to the US, his first since the 50% tariffs were imposed. The ministry says the delegation held quote-unquote constructive meetings and both sides agreed to continue the engagements to achieve an early conclusion of the trade deal. Good morning. It is the start of a truncated but a very important week for our Indian markets. You're watching Power Breakfast here on CNBC TV18 in the Mumbai News Centre. I am Hormis Fatakia. Let's first take a look at how the Asian markets have started off this morning, and it is a mixed picture. Currently, the Hang Seng, as you can see, is down over 1% or close to 1%. The Taiwanese index, though, is the underperformer, trading with losses of close to 2%, seeing some profit booking after last week's outperformance. South Korean Kospi has been the outperformer of the year so far and continues to add on to those gains, up another % in today's session. But the losses also coming in from Japan, 0.7% lower on the Nikkei. The broader market index there, the Topix, is down by over 1.25%. So a mixed picture, outperformance coming in from Hang Seng and the Kospi. The losses, though, coming from Japan and Taiwan. So the mixed picture across the Asia Pacific screen. Pull up the GIFT Nifty. That, though, after a 6-day fall for our own markets and 16 lakh crore market cap loss last week, is indicating a gap up start, some rebound expected from lower levels. But to set you up for today's trade, our research team is joining in with how the trade setup looks like and the stocks that are likely to be in the news today. First up, Gaurav is here to get us all the market cues that we need to watch out for. Gaurav, good morning. It was a forgettable week for the bulls the last time around, but what are the important cues you are watching out for today?
Well, absolutely. As you said it was actually a forgettable run for the bulls, because when we look at the market, it has actually has been on the losing streak for the 6th consecutive session on Friday. It declined almost by 2.6% on the last week, and it ended at around 24,600 level, and that is the reason why 24,600 level becomes an important level to watch out for. Because remember, even though Nifty has lost a lot, but if we look on a month-on-month performance, it is still up if we compare it with the month of August. So definitely 24,600 is a key thing to watch out for. Other than that, Nifty IT was actually a biggest loser. If we look at the performance, it is down almost by 8% in last week itself because of the changes in the H1B visa and other related changes. At the same time, we also saw Nifty Realty and Pharma actually reacted to at a negative level. But from here on, Nifty Pharma is another thing to watch out for, because now, although US has put 100% tariff on branded drugs, at the same time China has now slashed tariff on Indian pharma products from 30% to 0%. Remember, India does not have any major exposure to Chinese pharmaceutical market, but definitely we are watching out the basis on the sentimental impact of on Nifty Pharma. Other than that, RBI MPC meeting now that will begin from 29th of September. So definitely Nifty Bank is something that we should be watching out for. Remember, last week it is down more than 2%. On the global side, when we look at US markets, S&P actually ended its 3 days losing streak on Friday. It is up more than 0.5%. So definitely we'll be watching out on how the global market is also going to be. But at the same time, for Indian markets, Indian IT, Indian Nifty financials and Nifty Pharma are 3 key indices that we will be watching out from here on.
Indeed, 3 important indices to watch out for in today's session. Gaurav, thank you for that update. But over to Upasna now, who would list out the stocks that you need to keep your eye out for in today's session. Upasna, good morning. What's on your list?
Good morning. First up, let me start with HUL. The company has come up with this Q2 update in which the company expects consolidated business growth to be near flat to low single digit for Q2. Next up is HDFC Bank. The UAE regulator has asked the bank to halt acquiring new clients. Next up is Tata Motors. Now, PB Balaji resigns as the CFO with effect from 17th of November 2025 and Dhiman Gupta to take charge instead as the new CEO. Now, the board also appoints Shailesh Chandra as the MD and CEO of the company. And mind you that according to the reports, UK government also guarantees 1.5 billion loan for JLR. Hence, even this stock will be in focus. Next up, let me start with BEML. The company signs MOU with Bharat Forge and Data Patterns to support AMCA program. Next up is PG Electroplast. The company acquires 50-acre land parcel in Sri City and plans nearly 1,000 crore investment over the next 5 years is what the company has indicated. Next up is Power Grid. The board approves 2 new projects worth nearly about 700 crores. Seagull India also in focus as the JV secures 509 crore LOA from GMADA for development of Mohali Township. Next up is Azad Engineering. The company signs a new contract with Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Japan worth nearly about 651 crore. And also lastly, VIP Industries will be in focus on the back of the block deal as promoters have offloaded nearly about 6.2% stake in the company for 343 crore. So all in all these stocks will be on our radar today.
An important day beckons for our markets. Upasana, thank you for that update. And as Upasana was highlighting about Hindustan Unilever, the country's largest FMCG company, came out with an update on Friday. They are expecting a flat to low single-digit growth in the second quarter of this fiscal, which the results will be reported in a few days from now. And it is anticipating a recovery starting only in November. Shilpa is here with more details on this. Shilpa.
India's largest FMCG company is bracing for a short-term hit this quarter, and this is because of the latest GST cuts. Now, from soaps, shampoos to toothpaste, hair oil, talcum powder, even lifestyle nutrition, nearly 40% of HUL's portfolio now attracts just 5% GST, down from 12 or 18 earlier. Now, that's great news for consumers, and HUL is already passing on that benefit to consumers through lower prices and even better value right from 22nd of September. Now, this move also the company believes in the long term will drive demand and consumption. But in the short run, this reset has disrupted the supply chain. Distributors and retailers, they're holding back from fresh orders to clear the old stock. And consumers are delaying pantry buys, waiting for cheaper prices to hit the shelves. And this is something that we will see across the industry as all players are trying to move from the older MRPs to the new MRPs as the new GST rates come into effect. So HUL says that September sales have taken a knock, and this impact could also extend into October, and it expects Q2 growth to be flat to low single digits. But the company is calling this a one-off blip, and it's betting on the recovery from November as prices stabilize. And this is something that we're expected to see across the industry as well. And next quarter onwards, growth is expected to stabilize as the new prices come in and as that drives consumption coming back for the entire FMCG industry. Back to you.
Shilpa, thank you for that update. Take a short break. On the other side, we put the spotlight on some global cues and the developments with regards to the India-US trade talks. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has returned to India after a 3-day visit to the US. Now, this was his first visit since the 50% tariffs were imposed. The Commerce Minister Goyal met the United States Trade Representative Jamieson Greer and US Ambassador Designate to India Sergio Gore. Abhimanyu has more details on this. Abhimanyu.
Have indicated that the date and venue of the next round of trade negotiations between India and the United States has not been finalized yet. However, things are on track and efforts are underway to meet the fall deadline for the first tranche of a mutually beneficial bilateral trade agreement between both the sides. Also, sources indicated that there is an impact of pharmaceutical tariffs which have been imposed by the United States, and the impact is being studied. Now, both the sides are currently in negotiations. Earlier, between the 22nd and the 24th of September, a trade delegation headed by India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal had visited the United States. He had met the US trade representative as well as the US ambassador designate to India. Meetings were held between the government officials as well as India's negotiating team, and India's minister had held meetings with several business delegations within the United States too. The statement which had been issued by the ministry earlier had indicated that both the sides had exchanged views on possible contours of the deal, and it was decided to continue the engagements with a view to achieve an early conclusion of a mutually beneficial trade agreement.
Abhimanyu, thank you for that update. Meanwhile, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, in an interview to a news channel, stated that India remains among the big ones Washington wants to settle trade disputes with. Lutnick said, and I quote, "We have a bunch of countries to fix like Switzerland, Brazil, India. These are countries that need to really react correctly to America, opening their markets, stop taking actions that harm America, and that is why we are off sides with them," end of quote. Now, in the US markets, it was a good trading session on Friday for Wall Street. All the three benchmark indices ended higher, and that was after the PCE inflation data that was reported, and that was in line with expectations. The Dow Jones gaining 300 points, the S&P 500 0.6% higher, and the Nasdaq, gains of around close to 0.5% as well. Now, Friday's gains snapped a three-day losing streak for the indices, but they still managed to end the week with losses. Now, the US core inflation, as we just highlighted, the PCE, the core PCE inflation was little changed in August, according to the Federal Reserve's primary forecasting tool, likely keeping the central bank on pace for interest rate reductions in October as well. CNBC's Rick Santelli has a report.
Now let's get to the meat on the bone. The PCE numbers on the month over month, up 0.3 as expected. That is 1/10 hotter than the rear view mirror. 0.3, well, that would be the warmest since February when it was up 0.4, and Jan and Feb were the highest readings of the year, both up 0.4. Now, if we look at the year over year, it's 2.7 as expected. Once again, 1/10 hotter than the 2.6 in the rear view mirror. 2.7 equals where we were in February, which was the high of the year. To find a higher number, you're going to March of 24 when it was 2.8%. Now I think the most important numbers, we look at core PCE month over month, up 0.2. Good news. Not only is that as expected, it's 1/10 cooler than the rear view mirror, which was up 0.3. And finally, the most important number of all, in my opinion, core PCE year over year up 2.9%. Same as we were expecting, same as last month. And the high reading of the year was February when it was 2.95%.
Rick Santelli, thank you. And now let's also listen in to former Fed official Loretta Mester, who shares her reaction on these inflation numbers.
The narrative has been, if we could set aside tariffs, inflation is moving back down towards 2%, and that's just not what's in the data right now. If you look at core services and take out housing, which is coming down, you see that actually moved up. So this isn't really good news for the Fed. They have a very narrow lane to be in. They want to support the labor market, but they're going to need to keep some restrictiveness in their policy stance in order to bring inflation down. And we'll have to see how things play out the rest of the year in terms of where the economy is going. There's a lot of cross currents, as your panel was talking about right before, in terms of not only cyclical things going on, but some structural things, which complicates the picture.
Now, let's get you the latest on the developments related to US President Donald Trump. Dia is here in our special segment, Trump Watch. Dia.
Good morning. We begin with developments from West Asia. US President Donald Trump on Sunday hinted at a breakthrough in the region's crisis, saying all are on board for something special. Now, his comments come just ahead of a crucial White House meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday. Washington has been asserting that an ambitious plan to end the war in Gaza is nearly complete. Now, back home in the US, President Trump has ordered the military to be deployed to Portland, Oregon, to quell protests over his immigration policy. Now, this marks the fourth American city where the president has sent National Guard troops to duty, escalating his campaign against demonstrators opposing his policies. Now, but the move has triggered a legal battle. The state of Oregon and the city of Portland have now sued the Trump administration in an attempt to stop the deployment deployments. The lawsuit notes that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called 200 members of the Oregon National Guard into service effective immediately. Meanwhile, tensions with Iran are also in focus. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian revealed that the Trump administration demanded his country hand over its entire enriched uranium stockpile in exchange for temporary relief from impending UN sanctions. And finally, Washington has announced it will revoke the visa of Colombian President Gustavo Petro. The U.S. Department of State says the move comes after Petro incited violence and urged American soldiers to defy orders. Now, he was seen in New York City streets protesting against the Palestine conflict. Footage released by the Colombian presidential office showed him calling on U.S. troops to disobey Trump. That's all for today. Hormaz, now back to you.
Dia, thank you for that update. Let's take a short break. On the other side, we get your cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, Manisha Gupta joins in with all the updates from the commodities space. Manisha, good morning. What's on your radar today?
Well, I'm looking in gold and silver both because for gold, we are trading very close to its all-time highs, $5 away really. So you could be looking at all-time highs in the day today. For silver, very interesting moves coming in for this one. We're looking at $46 an ounce. Indian markets, of course, trading at an all-time high. But when you look at the prices, almost silver is trading at the best levels in last 10 years. And when it comes to gold, with the kind of 45, 46% of gains that we are seeing, this is the best. The last time that you saw these kind of gains were perhaps in 1979. So very, very strong gains continuing here. The market's also getting concerned about that U.S. government shutdown. Clearly, there would be something that would be passed today, tomorrow types, but then it would only be a temporary thing. And the markets are taking very, very strong cues from this one. Also, when you look at the US dollar index, the 9% decline that we've seen in this year clearly continues to be very supportive. And then we are looking at strong inflows into gold, whether it's coming from central banks, investment buying, even the physical buying across gold seems to be picking up, supporting the markets there. A quick word on the crude oil prices, and we have the very most important OPEC meeting to deal with in this week. While there's an expectation of 137,000 barrels per day of an increase coming in from OPEC yet again, it clearly has to do with supply concerns as well from Kurdistan, whether it is about supply concerns coming in from Russia. That is what seems to be keeping the crude oil prices in good favor.
Manisha, thank you for that update. Of course, all eyes, as Manisha was mentioning, will be on the OPEC meeting over the weekend. And to round off the show, India are the Asia Cup champions after beating Pakistan by 5 wickets in a final that will be remembered for years to come. A roller coaster match going one way or the other, but in the end, a special effort from India's middle order sealed the deal, and it was led by a match-winning 69 by Tilak Verma under pressure. However, the Indian team led by Surya Kumar Yadav refused to accept the Asia Cup trophy from the Asian Cricket Council President and Interior Minister of Pakistan, Mohsin Naqvi. With that, we call time on this edition of Power Breakfast. From me and the team that put this show together, thank you so much for watching. Bazaar Morning Call on the other side to set you up for the day's trade.